Are we here? Yay! Hi! Welcome back, partner.
Welcome back, Thysz. Grabe, parang yung place mo looks very familiar.
Yes. So I am broadcasting live from our ano ba to? HQ talaga mismo natin, no? Ang Hatch Hub sa Maginhawa. So I visited Maginhawa, my home for the longest time. And our producer, our boss, Jules Giang, bosses, dito ang kanilang HQ. So, ng Quarantalk Media. I'm so happy to have been able to visit finally. At nagamit ang facility natin. And we're broadcasting half from Raffy and here in Hatch Hub, our show. We were on a break last week because of to give way for the telethon fundraising for the benefit of the victims of Rolly and Ulysses. So we were so happy to be back, and we have a very hot topic. Katambal ng mga nangyari sa atin, no? Ang importansya ng siguro leadership sa panahong ito at kung paano ba natin ginagawa yan in a democratic process. It is the elections. It's 2 years away, but it's very important to be able to talk about it increasingly as early as now. Hindi kagaya ng mga nakaraang taon na nararamdaman na lang natin siya pag nakapaskil na yung mga poster ng mga tumatakbo sa labas, no? We are in a unique situation. The election is going to happen during a pandemic which still has no end. And I think we are, challenged to pick leaders that we can say can lead us out of this disaster upon disaster upon disaster.
Parang init na si Thysz.
Init na ako eh. Wala pa eh, pero init na ako eh. Kasi ganda ng topic natin and excited ako. If people may ask where this started, why we picked this topic today, I think there's no good time as any to talk about the elections, but also unique way, no? So nag-tweet ang ating isang guest at ng kanyang saloobin about the elections and how important it is, how we should be responsible and educated voters. Nag-react ako and sabi ko, bakit hindi natin ito pag-usapan? Napaka-interesting na topic from her point of view. Dagdagan natin ng isang election lawyer na kaibigan din natin. And I think it's gonna be a riot. So, magsimula tayo, Raf. Ito ang
E-numan, Thysz and Raffy. Ilabas ang pulutan!
Yes! Ayan. So, ang pupulutanin natin ay yung mga recent events na nangyari in the sphere online, no? There was, I think una-una natin we have to acknowledge, what has happened in Luzon. Mainly, we've been battered by like consecutive storms. Raffy's hometown battered. Manila also had that experience. And then crazy flooding in Marikina, Rizal, and different areas in Metro Manila. But the worst, I guess, was what happened in Cagayan Valley, Region 2, Isabela and Cagayan, hard hit with floods, catastrophic historical flooding, never before seen by citizens there. Nakita natin yung path ng destruction, Raf, I think, with your line of work, alam mo kung anong nangyari. But I think it's also showed, again, the bayanihan spirit. We all chipped in to help. Our time, effort, money. But what I guess is different in the conversation right now than most, meron naman lagi talk about accountability. But never before that it's been really, really noisy and people are more empowered to say that a lot of this is happening because of many things na hindi na itama, no? Na may chance sanang itama, hindi ginawa, hindi binigyan ng budget, hindi binigyan ng prioridad. At kaya may panawagan yung mga tao. So, unang hashtag natin, partner, ay may hinahanap tayo, partner. May hinahanap itong hashtag na to.
I heard.
So, the views
The views and opinions of
So, ang unang hashtag, yan ang ating disclaimer. So, unang hashtag, nasaan ang Pangulo? So, it was, it has trended many times, partner. And every single time, there's a talk of, it's not, I don't think the way other people are putting it is like we're looking for a specific person to be there and like stop the storm, you know? Walang nag-iisip nun na may physical na taong makakapigil ng isang bagyo. Ilang beses na yang sinisi na bakit ganun ang iniisip ng tao. No. Nasaan ang Pangulo, for the most part, and as I've read it online and people's sentiments, is looking for leadership in times of something that is unprecedented, no? So, nasaan ang Pangulo just certainly means we feel that there's nothing, we did not feel the leadership that's so needed in times of, these kinds of situations, disasters primarily. I think what underlines this really is the mere fact that our country is beset by disaster upon disaster and upon disaster. We experience many different natural phenomena. May magandang ang punto yung isa kong kaibigan, si BA, kung nanonood, hello, na actually there's no natural disaster. Nature has always been, has had crazy elements, phenomena that happen and occur. The loss of life and livelihood happens because it's a man-made thing. We have not prepared for it enough when in fact there is scientific methods to avoid this from happening. So nasaan doon, partner, ang hinahanap nating leadership, 'di ba? Nasaan doon yung accountability na may mga nangyayaring ganito? Paano natin aasahan knowing na yung bansa natin laging makakaranas nito? And even worse because we have a climate crisis. So, I think that's the main point of people looking for the president. Not necessarily na siya yung kailangang nandun at iharap yung sarili niya sa bagyo. I mean, he can sleep for all he wants for as long as we feel the leadership there. But a huge part of that is presence. 'Di ba? Presensya. No? So yun ang pinaka nasasabi ko. Ikaw naman.
That's right. Kasi ako hindi ako masyado ng maraming nasabi yung partner ko.
Totoo.
Tawag mo dito, ako simple lang. May hinahanap ka sa lahat ng bagay, hinahanap mo yung bagay or tao na gusto mong makita sa isang partikular na pagkakataon or partikular na pangyayari. Ako nga kapag hinanap ka, mas compliment yun eh. Para sa akin sa akin. But if you see it na parang pang-degrade sa'yo, parang ikaw yung may problema, hindi yung naghahanap sa'yo. So, yun lang yung masasabi ko dito sa... Ayokong sabihin kasi baka sabihin na naman ng mga trolls.
Sa totoo na, well, unang-una natin sabi, hindi nga na trolls eh. Naging public policy na ang, i-express kung ano nababasa online. Conspiracy theory, lies, etc. We don't need that. We are amidst still in a global pandemic which is in itself a disaster and compounded by the many natural phenomena that becomes a disaster because of human non-intervention, non-planning, walang pagpapahalaga. So, yun yung nangyayari.
Alright.
we're moving to the next one. Pulutan number 2 at ito is isa pa ring hashtag partner, no? At but this is really funny. I think it's really funny. This is hilarious. If you've observed what happened, kung ano nangyari. This was in response to that earlier hashtag. We were looking for the president. Where is the president? So ang hashtag ay nasa pusod ko ang Pangulo. Nasa
Why?
pusod. Hoy! Ano yun? The views!
Parang
Nasa
nasa puso ko ang Pangulo. And I've been
Oo.
seeing a lot of tweets also. No, from nabubulunan ako.
Nabubulunan ka.
I mean individuals naman na sa tingin ko naman ay matitino, no? But I guess is ano ba? Di ko mahanap yung tamang word eh. Pero for me kasi if you will spin it that way, ang babaw. Ako para sa akin nabababawan ako. Kasi yung nasa puso ko, hinahanap nga eh, hindi nga nararamdaman eh. Di ba? So kung hinahanap mo, wala yan dyan. Di ba? Wala sa inyo. Di happy naman kami para sa inyo. Pero for the general public, ilabas niyo siya sa mga puso ninyo because people, di ba, mga tao, gusto siyang makitang nagtatrabaho. Di ba? Enough of this mga nasa puso ko, etc., etc., di ba? But because yung response na to ay nagmula sa panawagan. Accountability lang naman yung hinahanap
Yes.
ng mga tao. So tigilan na yung mga nasa puso ko ang Pangulo na yan.
Okay.
At ito mas nakakaloka ha, bago ko ipasa kay partner.
Sige.
A government official or parang a government agency even claimed na nag-trend or nag-top trending topic ba? Tama ba yun? Na pinabulaanan ng isang media outlet na hindi naman totoo. So, guys, if you can't make it trend, stop it.
Ito yung ridiculous na partner. Kasi, sa totoo lang, yun naman talaga yung gusto nilang iparating. That's the messaging that they want. Nasa puso ang Pangulo. Which is, for me, it really speaks, for like how they really look at, a president as a figure, no, an inspirational figure. Talagang hinahanap niya yung tinitingala siya ang posisyon as of inspiration. Kasi to claim that somebody is in your heart means ang laki ng impact sa'yo nun eh. But why did we pick nasa pusod ko ang Pangulo? Because it became ridiculous. To be honest, this was just a typo. Hindi siya criticism, hindi siya sarcastic, naging typo siya na sinulat ng mga questionableng katauhan sa Twitter. It was pinag-aralan yung mga tweets na kung saan gagaling yung nasa pusod ko ang Pangulo at bakit siya nagtitrend. Kasi biglang may mga foreign Twitter users, looks foreign, everything in their account looks foreign, na ito ang pinagtitweet. So ibig sabihin, may hindi nakakuha ng instruction partner. Na dapat puso ang ilagay at hindi pusod. So, yun yung nakakatawa. So, it became really ridiculous online and it became, a laughing stock. Who wants a country na ganun ang tingin sa Pangulo? Nakakatawa, bastos, uncouth, hindi niya masabi kung ano yung hindi siya lucid. For example, like dapat ang pinag-uusapan ay disaster response, pangtitira ng mga kalaban niya ang inuuna. So, walang may gusto nun. Sa totoo lang. Hindi ko yun gusto. Siguro kung sa normal na tao na wala namang pag narinig niya yun sa kahit na sino pang ibang tao, if he's dealt, that kind of attitude, sasabihin niya, ayoko niyan. Pero bakit may mga pumapabor? A lot of it is the sphere, There's false news all around. May mga troll farms. May mga taong hindi naman totoong tao na nagpapalaganap ng ganitong mga ganitong opinion balita. At sadly, people are swayed in that kinds of opinion. So, sa tingin ko, tama na ito at hindi na dapat to, pinagpapatuloy. We have to start seeking accountability. They always say that the Filipinos are resilient. There's always the resiliency narrative, but I think it's high time. Time is up. Hindi na natin kailangan yan. Kailangan natin to hold people accountable. And what reason, ano bang rason ba't sila nandyan? Kundi ba dahil binoto sila? The people gave them the mandate and this power. And in a democratic process, wag tayo sa extra democratic. May panahon tayo dyan na pag-usapan yan. Pero, mamaya, parang tayo mag-usapan. Pero sa democratic na process, dahil isa pa rin naman tayong republika, a democratic country, we are going to want to follow a way, kung tayo naglagay sa kanila dyan, tayo din ang makakapagtanggal sa kanila dyan. So, what is this process? This is called our elections. And it's happening within 2 years. And ang usapan natin ngayon, ang ating E-numan talaga for tonight, ay we'll talk about election 2022 in the context of the professions of our guests, the importance of youth involvement in the electoral process, and siguro mga wishes natin, anong mga nakikita natin na sana'y magbago on the lead up to the elections. Everyone's preparing for it, Raffy. Everyone. People are already thinking of what to do because you only really have a year to prepare if you want to go and run. But also, I want to make people understand, those who are joining us and watching us, it's not just them, the politicians who are running, who should prepare. Most important people who should be preparing are us, the voters. So, on that note, we're going to introduce our guests.
Yes, we are
Handa na ba tayo?
Yes. At ito, sorry, we weren't able to seg it properly. But bago tayo magpatuloy sa ating main segment for tonight, hello muna sa ating mga ka-cuties, mga Quarantalk. Hello kay Zuwin Guantero, watching
Hi,
from
Zu.
Hi, Zu. Si Bequilio Doms is watching from Pasay City.
Hello.
Si Sel Villoso is from Cagayan Valley. And ito, friend natin, si Atty. Benedict Desperos, sana all daw nasa puso. Hello, Atty. Ben.
Si Josh ay ang aking partner sa aking relief drive for Isabela. He is currently in Santiago City.
Speaking of relief drive, we are supporting yung Thysz and Raffy is supporting the fundraiser of Metro Manila Pride, kung saan trusty po ang ating partner na si Thysz Estrada. I'm wearing the Resist
Yes! Fantastic t-shirts. You visit the Instagram page of Metro Manila Pride, mmpride.org. Look at the post that says Sulong Tulong, and you'll have the references there, links where you can purchase Pride merch. And proceeds of this Pride merch sales will go to the relief efforts for Cagayan Valley. So mga allies and LGBTQ natin na friends dyan, please help us promote Sulong Tulong by purchasing your Pride merch via Pride. We've raised 11,850 as of 8 p.m. today. So yun yung sabi ng ating Metro Manila Pride. I think it's gonna be more. So, but thank you so much. Tuloy-tuloy lang yan. Ako kaka-order ko lang din. So, ang ganda nung pink, partner. I actually want that. Parang gusto ko yung...
For me and my friend. Now I'm wearing the
black one.
Together.
Yes.
Shirt na binigay nila sa amin after the Pride March. Maraming salamat. Pero, eto, napakahalagang usapin. Binanggit na nga kanina ni Thysz, no? Kung sawa na sa pag-meltdown, kung sawa na sa kung sawa na sa mga paulit-ulit na pangalan, kailangan nating paghandaan. Kailangan nating paghandaan ng maayos. Hindi yung paghahanda ng mga politiko ha, pero tayo mga botante, ang paghahanda ng mga botante sa darating na eleksyon. Ito ang ating main segment or main topic for tonight sa ating E-numan session.
Thank you sa ating mga producers. Bigla na lang tayo kumakabig-kabig do. Pero
correct. At least kaya yung mga problematic atang mga alaga nila. But we're very lucky tonight to have our guests. Ito mga paborito kong mga abogado din to. Aside from paborito kong abogado, paborito ko din kainuman. Nagiinuman kami nito kahit nakabarong pa kami. No, ito isa sa mga pinaka magagaling. Yun.
Ay!
If hindi pa siya yung pinakamagaling, isa sa mga pinakamagaling na election lawyers ng ating bansa. Batang-bata, hindi lang masyadong halata. Ang pinakamamahal kong kaibigan, si Atty. Emil Maran. Hello, Emil!
Hello, good morning. Ay, good evening na pala.
Good evening.
Alright, hi.
Hello, good evening, Emil. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for saying yes. I guess ever since na nagkaroon ng talk about actually voter registration nung pumutok siya, no, kasi nag-open, etc. I've always wanted to have something like this, like some sort of education. Kasi ako personally, marami din akong tanong. And who best to answer those questions but somebody like Emil. Okay, next naman ang ating i-introduce somebody who I became good friends with on Twitter. And to be honest, ako, one of the most aside from her who got everything's sa Twitter, no? One of the most sensible people when she does write things on Twitter, siya ang rason actually kung bakit tayo may ganitong show tonight. Yung panawagan niya at yung post niya on Twitter. Walang iba kundi si Atty. Ross Tugade. Good
Hi,
evening.
Ross!
Hello,
Good evening, Ross.
Raffy, Thysz, of course, Emil, and sa lahat ng nanonood ngayon. Thank you for inviting me and sa pagpansin sa aking Twitter thread.
Of course!
Of course! My gosh.
Bago tayo magsimula, mag-cheers muna tayo.
Yes, cheers muna. Anong iniinom natin? So, Raffy Classic na soju.
Classic
Soju.
Ako, another thank you from Tiger Beer. Still, thanks for sending me stuff. Ross, ano yan? Okay, Sunbig Light, Classic. Si Emil, syempre, kasosyalan. Siya ay naka-wine.
Sabi, alam mo, Emil, saan tayo ulit nag-inuman nang nakabarong pa tayo?
Alam ko sa Quezon City, but I can't remember which restaurant yun. But it was after Jover's wedding, di ba?
So, after ng isang wedding ng friend namin, sumugod kami sa isang restaurant na nakabarong. So, syempre, umeksena kami doon, di ba? So, feel na, akala naman nila, ganun lang yung get up namin talaga sa simpleng gabi. Marami ng mga nagtatanong actually sa Facebook, but we will read their questions later. Pero simulan natin sa paglalatag. Itong administrasyong ito, aside from hinahanap palagi yung ating pinuno, no, sa napakaraming concerns, isa or if hindi siya ang sentro ng problema na kinakaharap ng administrasyong ito, ay yung problema on human rights, no? And usually, palagi siyang nadi-discount sa mga drug addict naman yan. Mga criminal naman yan. Mga terorista naman yan, etc., etc. Maraming mga tags, maraming mga labels ang mga ginagamit na to cover up, no? Yung iba't ibang mga human rights abuses na kinukumit. At ito ang mas nakakatakot. Little by little, halos planado, orchestrated na pagpaplano ng pag-aabuso sa human rights na kinauwian niya ay isang batas. 'Di ba? So, ilatag natin ang lente natin sa pagsusuri kung bakit mahalaga ang 2022 elections dito sa problemang ito. So maybe we can start with Attorney Ross. Bakit mahalagang gamitin ang human rights lens sa pagsusuri at paghahanda sa darating na 2022 elections?
Siguro, just to contextualize with our viewers, no, I've been working in the human rights sector ever since naging abogado po ako. Dalawang mekanismo na yung napagtrabahuan ko. First, relating to the Marcos victims. Tapos ngayon po, with the National Human Rights Institution of the Philippines. So, kita ko yung, in a sense, kita ko comparatively, no, yung scale and extent ng abuses during martial law. Of course, hindi pa ako buhay nun. Pero I saw it from the perspective of victims themselves by talking to them. And also, nung lumipat na ako ng trabaho, nakita ko naman yung mas contemporary na konteksto natin with respect to human rights. So, ano ba yung pinakapangako nung Pangulo nung tumakbo siya noong 2016? Sabi niya, I will end criminality and I will not hesitate to kill. Importante yon. And in his first State of the Nation address, if not the first, one of the first few sonas of the president, he made this distinction. No? Sabi niya, your concern is human rights, my concern is human lives. As if merong pagkakaiba dun sa dalawa. Pero hindi eh. Human dignity, human life is intimately related to human rights. Human rights yung mekanismo kung papaano tayo nabubuhay ng may dignidad. And as of, I've checked with the real numbers PH statistics of PIDEA, 5,903 deaths have occurred under police operations relating to the war on drugs. Okay, hindi po fake news ito. Ito po ay numero na nanggaling mismo sa PIDEA. And the
5,000 lang?
Oh 5,000 yung official numbers.
Correct. And these are the documented numbers pa lang, ha?
Yes.
Diba? Yeah.
But mass media is estimating that we have over 30,000 now. So imagine nyo yung buong Araneta Coliseum. Punuin nyo yun. Yun yung estimated projected number of victims under this ruthless campaign against illegal drugs. So yun yung konteksto ginagalawan natin ngayon. Sa tingin ko, the elections, hindi lang siya referendum on certain things, no, on certain policies. Para sa akin, isa siyang existential decision-making process. Of course, hindi lang naman election ang mga proseso under a democracy, no? Pero mahalaga institutionally ang election kasi we will get to decide on the issue, especially of human rights, kasi lahat tayo merong stake dito eh. Lahat tayo nakasalalay yung mismong integridad ng buhay natin. We don't know if tomorrow tayo na ba yung susunod na magiging targets ng mga polisiyang ito, lalo na mainit ang administrasyon sa human rights defender. So mahalaga yung magiging susunod na election to make certain decisions as a people where we stand now on human rights and other important issues.
I highly agree.
Ang ganda nung sinasabi ni Ross kanina na yung narrative na pinupush ng administration patungkol sa war on drugs, actually hindi siya nag-make sense. No? Na yung narrative na sinasalba namin ng buhay, actually hindi nga eh. Kasi sinasabi ng mga numero na hindi. No? At napakarami pang kwento on war on drugs at iba pang human rights violations na pwede natin mapagkwentohan. Pero isa yung mahalagang punto ni Attorney Ross na gusto kong i-harp sana, na as a country, di ba, tawag mo dito, punong-puno tayo ng puso sa demokrasya, sa proseso, etc. Pero ako feeling ko, dun sa mga kwento ni Atty. Ross, parang paunti-unti na siyang nawawala. Paunti-unti na siyang nagka-crumble. At very scary yun. No? And may sinabi siyang very concrete na pang-redeem natin sa ganitong klaseng pangyayari. At ito yung darating na eleksyon. No? Sinabi na kanina ni Atty. Ross, Atty. Emil, no? Kung gaano kahalaga itong konteksto na ito sa darating na eleksyon. Pero sa tingin mo ba, yung darating na eleksyon sa 2022, can still redeem kung ano pa yung mga nagawa or kung ano pa yung mga nasira ng administrasyong ito?
Sa akin siguro, of course, 2022 would mean parang an opportunity to change yung administration natin. So, changing the administration also means impossibility na finally makahanap na ng justice, especially yung victims sa mga EJ case. Because of course, under the current regime, current setup, from the prosecutors hanggang sa justice system natin, it's still parang andun yung shadow ng administration. So we don't expect that they would get justice under the current status quo, sa current status quo. So the coming 2022 elections, ang daming layers yan eh. So you can look at it from the perspective na it means change in the administration. It could also, at the same time, parang, ano siya, yung parang ultimate, yung parang dun sa ating mga leaders, parang test siya, yung parang it's either an affirmation or an act of the general public actually saying na mali yung ginagawa ninyo, so we will change you. So ang daming layers at saka yung perspective na para tingnan yung upcoming elections.
Yeah, but if we will look at the numbers, no, iba yung mga interpretation. May sinasabi na ayaw ng mga tao ng abuses, ayaw ng mga tao sa Tokhang, pero gusto nila na nawawala yung mga drug addict sa community nila. Ano yung sinasabi ng numbers ito? Bakit medyo challenging siyang intindihin na may gusto, may ayaw, pero very popular pa rin yung initiator ng ganitong klaseng polisiya? Atty. Ross?
Ang sobrang daming kailangan i-unpack with that line of inquiry, no, na on the one hand, malakas kasi sa tingin ko very visceral kasi yung takot natin against criminality. Kasi pwede kang maging biktima ng kriminalidad eh. So immediate yung very primal yung natitrigger sa atin na response kung bakit gusto nating mapuksa ang kriminalidad sa mga komunidad natin. Pero we have to ask ourselves the questions, at what cost? And to what extent are we willing to compromise certain aspects of our humanity? Hindi na nga lang parts of our political consciousness or our political identities, pero yung pagiging tao na natin, ano yung kailangan nating i-give up para lang magkaroon ng ganitong klase mga solusyon in terms of policy. And sa tingin ko hindi naman incompatible yung desire to respect, protect, fulfill human rights and the desire to keep our community safe. Kaya siyang gawin nang hindi nakokompromiso yung integridad ng pagiging tao natin. Ayun.
Amazing.
Yes. Kind of number one.
I'm coming for your gig.
Snatch that wig, girl. Snatch that wig. Pero yes, ako, oh my God, I have to agree completely. I've seen it firsthand. Na hindi yung kriminalidad, wala siya sa kung sobrang heavy-handed punishments to the point na extrajudicial ang pag-eliminate ng buhay ng tao. Yun yung solusyon na nakikita at yun yung na parang yun na lang yung way to stop criminality or like the spread of illegal drugs. First hand, ako kukwento ko mabilis partner, I lived for 2 months in Portugal where drugs are decriminalized, no? So walang ang droga doon, ang drug problem or pagbebenta ng drugs ay regulated ng government at ang drug problem pag meron ka is treated as a health problem. ibig sabihin na nga abuso ka ng drugs because there's something in you that, parang psychologically abuses these drugs. And hindi siya punitive ang nangyayari. It's really rehabilitation. But Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, is one of the lowest crime rates in Europe. It's one of the safest places that you can go around. And naglalakad ako nun ng alas 2 sa madaling araw, alas 3 sa madaling araw. Parang simbahan. Sobrang tahimik. Walang tao around. And if you do see somebody, they will even greet you. Good evening. Ganon. So, ibig sabihin, hindi nag-i-equal yung pagiging sobrang malupit sa ganitong klaseng pangyayari. I mean, mga things like criminality, etc.
Yeah.
Or drug use or trade of illegal drugs. Kasi I don't think the source has ever been eliminated. As in, like, walang opportunity, walang chance na talagang i-touch yung source nito, partner. So, I guess, dun yung frustration ng mga tao, ba't di ba to nawawala? So, dahil hindi nawawala, baka ang kailangan ay disiplina at heavy-handed punishment. Na yun nga, ultimate is death. So, I don't agree with that. And that's why I think the leaders in place that doesn't reflect my morals and values should be replaced.
Yeah. Going back to my question with Ross kanina, no? Talking about numbers, Atty. Emil, do you think we have the numbers sa darating na 2022 to really change or at least effect change doon sa klase ng politika and at the same time pag-gobyerno sa Pilipinas? Palagi sinasabi, konti lang kayong may ayaw sa drug war, konti lang kayong naniniwala sa human rights, konti lang kayong naniniwala sa human dignity, konti lang kayong naniniwala na dapat walang korupsyon sa gobyerno, konti lang kayong naniniwala na dapat yung mga katulad ni Marcos ay hindi binabalik sa gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Do we even have the numbers? Baka tayo yung 4 lang yon, no?
Well, unang-una, I think I've been saying this na hindi actually 2022 elections yung parang moment ng Pilipinas to actually reject whatever man ginagawa ng Duterte regime. I was always, I have been saying dati na, 2019 elections yun actually, kasi at that time, yun actually height ng extrajudicial killings. And in fact, I was a bit hopeful na, sabi ko, parang ito yung opportunity natin to actually show the government na we don't like what they're doing. But we ended up actually electing like out of 12 senators na dapat i-elect natin, actually 12 came from the administration. Tapos natalo pa actually yung parang strongest bets ng opposition. So for me, ang tanong dyan, does this mean na parang approval to actually ng publiko na tama yung ginagawa ng administration? Pinag-isipan ko to and I later realized na at the end of the day, yung election sa Pilipinas is not really issue-based. At the end of the day, yung sa Pilipinas is all about money. It's all about yung structure ng campaign mo, gaano mo ba kahawak yung LGU. So it's all about numero pa rin. We're not still talking about elections in the context ng mga issues. So unlike sa United States, for example, na everyone in the last few weeks have been very hopeful na okay yan, parang mangyayari din yan sa atin in 2022. But at the end of the day, ang reality sa elections natin, it's still not issue-based even up to this point. It's all about money. Yun pa rin yung nagde-define actually ng resulta ng eleksyon dito sa Pilipinas. So, yun yung dapat na reality din, na if we really want to contest this administration this coming 2022, we really have to face this reality na it's all about money. Alam
power.
Alam ni Raffy yan kasi siya mismo have experience on how to run an election. So, yun. For example, last 2019, I lawyered for Chel, I lawyered for Makalintal and Pilo. And doon ko na-experience firsthand kung gaano kahirap tumakbo sa eleksyon ng walang pera. And of course, I was not surprised actually of the result. considering na kung gaano kahirap yun. So, yun. I think coming to the 2022 elections, hindi dapat natin tanggalin sa isip natin na it's all about, andyan yung mga issues, perhaps people are not happy with the current administration, but at the end of the day, hindi pa rin yun yung consideration nila in voting. So, at the end of the day, it's still pera, influence, power, and those are the things that we need to think about of how kung paano natin i-approach yung 2022 elections. Ayan.
Si Atty. Emil talked about yung election as not being an issue-based exercise, no? So Ross, how can we do it? Diba? Parang as human rights defenders, as group of people na naniniwala sa napakahalagang issue ng lipunan, how can we even sell human rights, and how can we even make people understand that it's an important issue to protect and to fight for in the upcoming 2022 elections? Kasi parang alam niyo naman, naniniwala naman ako sa pinaglalaban natin. Pero, pagiging devil's advocate, kung ako yung nakikinig na politiko, iisipin ko lang, dapat criminality na lang yung ipupush ng agenda. War against criminality, di ba? Kesa sa human rights that's very soft, na hindi na iintindihan ng mga tao. Pero kapag pagsugpo sa droga, pagpatay sa mga kriminal, etc., it's a very powerful message. But I guess because the sound created by this administration is very, very loud, it can still echo in the next elections, diba? So what can we do? I mean, if this is happening now, and it will happen sa 2022 elections, what can we do?
Yun nga, tama ka, Raffy, no? It's human rights, medyo passé na nga siya. In the past 4 years, umay na pati human rights workers, minsan umay na pag-usapan yung legal infrastructure of human rights. Kasi it's not a sexy topic, sa totoo lang. It's not something na kapag nirelay mo yung konsepto ng karapatang pantao sa ordinaryong mamamayan, parang ano yun? Parang as long as nakikita ko na visible yung politiko ko dito sa LGU ko, goods na ako. Pero sa tingin ako, I'm not a political organizer, pero I really agree with the sentiment now that if we want to create tangible shifts in leadership in 2022, mag-organisa tayo sa grassroots. The trends now on Twitter, umpisa lang yan eh. And hindi nakukulong and political decisions are not made on Twitter. Hindi nakukulong ang electoral choices based on Twitter trends. Actually, tayo lang nag-uusap on Twitter, sa totoo lang, di ba? Kailangan nating lumabas and mag-organisa tayo kagaya nung ginawa in some parts of the United States. Look at the example of Stacey Abrams.
Yes.
She got people who are affected directly by bad leadership to register, to speak up on certain issues, certain topics, and got them to vote and to swing the election in favor of a candidate na akala nila matatalo in that state. So, ayun, yun din para sa tingin ko yung electoral culture natin sa Pilipinas. Kailangan nating i-rethink yun and i-interrogate ulit kung paano natin i-confront tong electoral culture na to na sa tingin ko, yun nga parang, alam mong election na kapag marami na naka-plaster na mga mukha sa daan. Pero, paano natin paiikutin yon and get people to talk about issues that affect them. Na ang human rights bilang isang thematic issue na pagdedesisyonan natin sa 2022 ay hindi lang isang legal concept, kundi isang konsepto na nakaka-affect mismo sa buhay natin bilang mga Pilipino.
tama yung sinabi ni Ross. Actually, gusto ko din sagutin yung tanong ko. Palagi itong tinatanong sa akin sa mga talks, mga seminars, no. Wala akong ibang sagot sa tanong kung anong kailangan natin gawin sa 2022, kundi pag-uorganisa. Actually, kasi napakaraming hopeful especially yung mga kabataan na very powerful ang force. So that, I guess si Atty. Emil can give us parang some things later on youth vote. No? Pero hindi mananalo yung gusto ninyong kandidato kung hindi kayo aalis sa Twitter, hindi kayo makakalampag, door to door, magkukumbinsi ng mga tao face to face, no? Dahil yung ginagawa natin, yung plataforma kung saan natin feeling natin maingay tayo, which is Twitter or Facebook or other social media platforms, talo tayo dyan. Wala tayong maha-harvest dyan. Kasi sa kanila, they've been using that art, their narrative, their propaganda, etc. And we can't do anything about it anymore.
Yes.
The platform in itself is a bit corrupt, di ba? Kasi ano na siya
corrupt.
Hindi na siya, syempre, may mga friends ako sa buti si Thysz na kalaya na siya.
Ako, nagaling ako doon, pero umalis na ako.
Kalaya na siya. But, you know, it's difficult. But, again, yung pag-uorganisa, it's a classic strategy na proven na ng iba't ibang mga diktador sa buong mundo ang trampo lang sa kanila pag-organisa diba? At kailangan natin gawin ulit yun. It's very unsexy, it's very tiring. Actually, sobrang nakakapagod talaga siyang gawin, pero kailangan natin mag-organisa. At yung pag-organisa na tama, yung pag-organisa na tumatatak sa puso, yung pag-organisa na naririnig, hindi yung pag-uorganisa ng sariling bubble, di ba? Kasi napakakami yung conversation on chururut. Pero pare-parehong mukha lang naman. The next day, conversation on whatever. Sila lang naman. So para ako, guys, nagsasayang kayo ng resources, paulit-ulit lang yung mga attendees nyo, di ba? Paulit-ulit lang kayo, di ba? So, yun yung kailangan natin gawin. I think si Atty. Emil would like to say something.
Just to give you a concrete example, no, in 2019 elections, of course, Chel was favorite sa social media, so from Twitter to Facebook. But at the end of the day, hindi na-reflect yung same popularity dun sa actual votes na nakuha niya. So he ended up, I think, number 16, or even mas mababa pa. And yun yung realization namin, yung analysis namin later on, na parang, bakit, di ba? So, ibig sabihin yan, yung karamihan sa mga batang sumusuporta sa kanya sa social media are not actually, number one, registered voters, and number two, even if they are, hindi sila bumoto nung mismong election day because either nainitan, ayaw mainitan, or ayaw pumila. So that's precisely yung problem natin na yun, hindi na tatranspose yung boses sa social media dun sa actual votes. Because at the end of the day, we should not forget that elections is a numbers game. It doesn't matter hindi yung palakasan ng sigaw. At the end of the day, bilangan yan it's a numbers game. So ang tanong natin, if you want to win an election, is how do you raise that sufficient number to actually get a seat in the Senate or to win the presidency is this coming 2022 elections. So later on, we will dissect paano yun, ano yung gagawin natin. Because for me, kulang yung sasabihin mo na you want to organize, but you want to organize para saan at para anong gagawin ninyo. So yun yung mas importanteng question because kahit mag-meeting kayo dyan, you get a lot of people to gather around a particular candidate. But if you don't know what to do, what you will do, then wala ding effect yan. So yan nga sinasabi ko, at the end of the day, go back to that very crucial fact in election na at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. And how will you get that number to give you a seat in government? So yun yung pinaka-importante parate. Ayan.
Wow.
Partner.
Ha?
Nice.
Yes. Yeah, I was reacting. It's like absolutely right.
Yan.
What the hell?
Yung sa akin kasi, I've been, if you've seen my Twitter post, I've been pushing really for the youth vote. Kasi ang aking ano nga doon, bumabalik ako sa statistics Can you imagine, ang botante natin na youth, balik tayo 2019 elections, based sa data ng COMELEC, actually 1/3 of the voters are actually youth. So around 20 million yan. So yun nga sinasabi ko, yung 20 million na yan, it's actually enough to win a presidential election because even Digong won only with around 16.7 million. So if you have 20 million na youth voters, that they're actually enough to elect the next president. And yun nga sinasabi ko, that ano lang yung 2019 data ha, if you're looking at the 2020 data, they're actually estimating na around almost 30 million youth ang eligible to actually vote for the next election.
Wow.
So 30 million. So can you imagine kung 30 million yan, kung bumoto sila ng tama and actually they choose for the yung tamang candidate, enough yun actually to change yung government structure natin from presidente hanggang senador. So ganun ka-powerful yung youth vote. Ngayon ang tanong nila always is bakit youth? I mean, bakit mo pinipeg yung hope mo? So yun nga sinasabi ko na hindi issue-based yung election sa Pilipinas, but naniniwala ako doon sa mga kabataan. Bakit? Kasi number one, mas informed sila kesa doon sa ibang age group. Kasi mas exposed sila sa social media, they have access sa internet. So, in other words, mas naniniwala ako na they have more information, may access sila sa information for them to make the right choice. So, sinasabi ko nga, mas naniniwala ako doon sa mga youth voters. So, sa akin, it's one age group na dapat, if you want to win the 2022 elections, it's the age group that you want to focus on. And yun, later on, i-discuss natin kung paano yung 2022 elections and how do we actually form our strategies para actually we can win this against the administration with all the state machinery, with all the money. So, kailangan natin pag-usapan yan.
I think meron akong, I don't know how familiar you are with this, but growing up, I've always known that during the 1992 elections, when Fidel Ramos was voted into the presidency, the second, it was one of the closest races for the presidency because Miriam carried the youth vote. Ganun naging sobrang importante yung youth vote at the time for Miriam to almost clinch that victory.
Kayo niyan, no? High school na kayo ni Emil.
Grabe!
Bastos ka. Actually, I remember 1992.
Toddlers lang ako noon.
2 years old pa lang ako niyan.
Wow!
Grade 2 ako. Grade 2. So, yan.
Ako ay...
Tama.
And of course...
Sorry. Yes, Emil. Sorry. Go.
Yeah, and of course, I'm from Iloilo. So, alam ko super intense yung 1992 election sa amin. So, until now, I mean, most people hindi pa rin makaget over dun sa hang-up na yun. So, parang until now, kita mo si Rabia Mateo, yun pa rin yung sagot niya. It's all about Miriam, the best president that we never had, di ba? So, it's something that we still talk about back
really stuck. Oo. But then, yun yung isa sa mga tawag dito, like examples, no? Good examples of the youth vote actually coming out and had a huge impact on someone's candidacy. So, like, it was pinag-aralan siya somehow na parang, kasi Miriam was, I don't know, she did have a national post that time. But she ran for the presidency matched with, the machinery of a Ramos, who has like infamous for his role in EDSA. So, ganun din ba dapat natin i-expect na meron tayong singular candidate, for example, na susuportahan ng youth? And how are we going to say or sell this to the young people na dapat as much as possible, iisa lang yung, hindi naman sa iisa lang yung suportahan, no? I mean, they have to also be critical. But to really topple and really get to that point to change what we have to change. Na ganun dapat natin i-reflect yung volume ng sasali sa electoral process and eventually mag-turn over nung tide. Yun yung isa sa mga naiisip ko na parang malaki kong responsibility to at least teach or tell the youth na sasali sa electoral process. Siguro, do you have another question, Raffy, in mind? Because I have one.
Go, partner.
Yeah. So, we are seeing efforts to rally the youth to register. And for the most part, what I see is pag-register lang yung focus. What else should these efforts do to have a direct impact to actually changing somebody's I mean right now yung kung ano kailangan nating ibaguhin na hindi natin gusto. Nagsabi na si Attorney Emil na aasahan niya yung youth vote in that sense. Pero ikaw, Ross, as part of youth and people who wag ka tumawa, youth ka pa rin. Kami yung hindi na talaga. Char. Parang ano bang dapat gawin? Kasi masyadong stuck yung messaging sa just pagre-register.
Sa akin, I think medyo kailangan din i-problematize yung we have to educate them kasi very elitist. Let's call it for what it is. It's very elitist.
Yes.
Na alam nyo, kaya kong baguhin yung pag-iisip ng mga kabataan at ng mga botante once I educate them with how I see it, the way I see it. Sa akin, counterintuitive pakinggan, but I think the first process is to listen to these voters, these potential voters, kung ano ba yung mga issue na sa tingin nila yung immediate na kailangan tugunan, and we take it from there. We consolidate our strategies and resources. If eventually it will be towards a viable candidate in 2022. Pakinggan muna natin kung ano yung hinaing ng mga kabataan, hinaing ng hindi lang kabataan, ng mga botante ng mga iba't ibang sektor sa lipunan. So we can properly align our strategies. No? So yun nga, sabi ko medyo counterintuitive siya pakinggan. Pero yun, sawang-sawa na ako with all these savior narratives na educate them and hopefully hindi na sila boboto ng sa ganitong paraan in the next election.
That's right.
So
listening process, napaka-importante. I think with anything na you're trying to educate, tama ka talaga, Ross. Kasi sometimes hindi yun naaalis, no? Pag sinabi mong, I'll educate you, parang, it's coming from a point na parang, you're ignorant, I'm not. And tama ka, it's elitist. If it doesn't, yung kung ganun yung intention, no? But to really cleanse yourself of that intention, dapat makinig ka muna. Napakaganda.
Gusto ko rin sumagot before siguro si Emil on that. Palagi kong sinasabi every time I get consulted by different youth organizations na hindi nag-end ang advocacy sa voters registration. Kaya kailangan ng voters education dahil kailangan, or hindi lang yung voters education kasi iba na yung, may iba nagsusulong ng ibang terms din sa pagpapalalim ng pag-intindi ng mga botante. Pero ang punto ay, hindi lang sa pag-rehistro natatapos ang advokasya dapat. Dapat, prosesong ito, napapaintindi natin sa kanila na kapag ikaw ay rehistrado na, ang iboboto mo dapat na politiko or na leader ay tama. Diba? Kasi itong mga rehistradong botante, pwede pa rin na ang iboto nila ay mga
political lang sila doon.
Political dynasty, membro ng pamilyang etc. etc. But I hope na when we encourage these young people to register, they would vote no, for the right people, di ba? They would hold people in power accountable. They would hold these people to highest standards, no? Hindi pwedeng yung 2:00 na tulog pa, di ba? Hindi pwedeng. So,
Oops! Oops!
it's the soju.
It's the soju. Hayaan mo na. Hayaan mo na. Night person.
Hindi pwede yon kasi sa relief operations, ang 2:00 ay second shift na.
Ilang na ipake nyo na?
Correct. So, yun yung mahalaga para sa akin, partner. Yung mas pagpapalalim ng pag-intindi ng mga rehistradong botante kung paano at kung sino ang dapat iboto.
Meron akong follow-up kasi sige, go. Rose,
one point lang. The way we adapt to technology and how we harness technology towards, political organizing. Kung kaya natin gawin, kaya rin nilang gawin yun eh. And by sila, I mean the politicians, the traditional politicians. Alam, madali sila magpronta ng bagong muka, yung mga pogi na mga anak ng political dynasty. Madali yan. I mean, sorry. If meron lang, if any, if at all, ay madaling siguro from a marketing perspective, madaling gawa ng spin yan eh.
Yes.
'Di ba? Nilalaro din nila to. So we have to be mindful also na kung anong kaya nating gawin, kaya nilang tapatan yan 10 times pa because they have the resources.
So ibig sabihin yun nga, outwit, outlast. Yung survivor talaga, outplay. Talaga, ganun talaga yung dapat at yung hinihingi. Ang itatanong ko kay Attorney Emil is parang ganun din, no? Pero ang kailangan ko is siguro, ano yung ngayong nangyayari? Sa observation mo, a huge part of voter education also must come from the COMELEC. Right? Kasi they should be the ones na nangunguna sa, somehow a neutral voice in asking people to be educated as voters. Sila yung nangunguna nito eh. What do you see that they're doing and ano ba bang mga nagawa na nila? Like, ano mga efforts meron?
Well, in all fairness sa COMELEC, no, I think they're doing their best actually to encourage people to vote because number one, may issue regarding dapat ituloy ba yung registration despite the fact na may pandemic. So, in fairness to COMELEC, they really push na mag-resume yung registration despite the fact na may risk nga involved doon sa pag-resume. So they really push na matumuloy siya. So number one, yun. And pangalawa, in fairness naman, they've been doing a lot of efforts no na para to encourage people to vote. But balikan ko yung ang sabi ninyo na it should not stop with the registration. But I have to again distinguish na number one, yung registration kasi yung time bound yan, ibig sabihin merong deadline. So you can only do that until September next year. So ang punto doon, hindi ko alam in terms of campaigning na is it really better to just focus on one issue at a time. So in other words, registration muna and then later on we can do the voter education part. Because pag hindi sila registered, kahit anong voter education yan, they will not count at the end of the day because nga hindi ka botante, di ba? So or pwede ding sabay, di ba? But again, ang yun nga yung sinasabi ko na kahit ma-register mo yung youth, kung at the end of the day hindi rin sila boboto or hindi rin sila informed, then hindi din magka-count yan, baka iba pa yung iboto. So in other words, hindi yan, it's not like a one thing process eh. So it's actually a continuing process. So after na mo ma-register, you have to educate them and at the end of the day, kailangan mo silang encourage na pumunta sa presinto on election day. Kasi kahit registered, kahit informed, kung hindi sila pupunta sa presinto, then they will not count then. So in other words, it's a continuing process. So dapat i-encourage natin yung voters to do that. But ang balik nga ako dun sa sinasabi ko kanina, that even if you encourage all the youth to register, but dapat tingnan mo din yung papaano mo mapapanalo yung eleksyon. So ako balik ka doon sa fact na yung election is actually a numbers game. So ako, it's more than just encouraging the youth to vote, but probably, sinasabi nga ni Ross kanina, that we have to organize. And for me, I think if we really want to win the 2022 elections, then we have to raise actually enough money for us to win that election. Because i-discuss ko na this coming 2022 election, yung difference ito with the ordinary election is that bawal yung grassroots na campaigning eh. So in other words, bawal. Ako, I would anticipate at this point na bawal mangampanya, walang campaigning, walang meeting de avance, walang pag-iikot. So ibig sabihin, ang 2022 election will be dependent on TV and radio ads because yun lang yung pinaka-safe na pwedeng gawin eh. So that would mean na it will be an expensive election. Now, ang tanong dyan, sino ngayon yung mananalo this coming 2022? So sa akin, ang mananalo dito would perhaps those politicians who can actually afford to advertise themselves on TV and on radio. And yung experience namin this last election 2019 eh sobrang mahal. In fact, Chel, despite the fact na meron na siyang parang solid support base, hindi pa rin kami naka-afford ng ano talaga, nung massive TV and radio ads, 'di ba? So ibig sabihin, if you really want to win the 2022 elections, it's not just about the youth voting, but we also have to really organize in order for us to raise enough money to win that elections, to fund whoever na candidate na gusto nating manalo sa election na yun.
Thank you so much, Ross and Emil. Hindi pa tapos, but we will be reading some of the
Yes, I was just about to say.
Questions raised by our viewers. At hello muna kay Atty. Tontoneri. Ito isa sa mga youth political organizers sa Cagayan de Oro sa Mindanao.
Maayong gabi.
Maayong gabi. Hello, ito na. This is from J.R. Ireneo de Macais. How can we unify our lens so that we have a strong narrative to a change of administration? Maybe we can start with Miss Universe, candidate number 1.
Ang hirap, no? Kasi, yun nga, aside from unifying yung kumbaga sa gobyerno yung one voice policy, no? Maliban doon, kailangan mo ang unify yung narrative. So, we need to pick out the most immediate issues of the day and go from there. Kaya konektado dun sa sinasabi ko kanina na let's not presume in behalf of the voters na ito yung mga issue na kailangan nating i-raise in 2022. Kailangan nating mapakinggan kung ano ba talaga yung dinadaing ng mga tao sa laylayan kasi hindi pwedeng tayo na nasa mga komportableng espasyo yung magdi-dictate ng narrative. Hindi po pwede yun. I don't know how will that play out, how will that materially or practically be strategized. Pero yun, sa punto ko, we have to pick out the narratives based on lived experiences of the people.
Wow. And I think that's why it's important na maaga pinag-uusapan, partner.
Yes.
Kasi that will not happen what Ross is, pining her hopes on if we delay it. We only have a year.
Iba palagi naman sinasabi sa mga magbabarkada, kapag isa lang yung crush ninyong magbabarkada, paunahan na lang yan. Diba?
Okay. Noted. Sasabihin namin agad.
Diba, ang lalim ng analysis ko, diba?
Isa pa tanong.
This is from Alexis Raimundo. May kakulangan ba sa critical thinking ang masang Pilipino as illustrated by the smart shaming, wow, ikaw na matalino rhetoric that leads to people identifying with the crass, more colloquial language this administration is peddling, strengthening and widening their base? If so, how do we solve it? Attorney Emil.
Unang-una siguro,
10 seconds to
question
answer.
So unang-una yung tanong doon is tama ba yung ating assessment na yun nga yung gusto ng taong bayan, yung crass na language ng gobyerno or yung pamamalakad ng gobyerno? Because unang-una, paano ba natin na may measure yun? Or how did we come up with that idea na yun yung gusto ng taong bayan? So, number one, ang sinasabi nila, because of the elections, nanalo si Digong or nanalo sila ng 2019 elections because approve ng taong bayan yung pamamalakad ng gobyerno. But then again, balik ako dun sa pinaka-heart na kung ano yung election eh. Election is all about money, it's all about resources, it's all about campaign structure eh. So, it doesn't really translate na because, in other words, the election is not like an accurate depiction ng sentiment ng bayan. Because if ikaw yung may hawak ng pera, it's ikaw yung hawak ng local governments, then ikaw pa rin yung mananalo even if the public actually disagree with how the government is being run. That is why sinasabi nila na ibig sabihin, if we want to contest this coming 2022 election, dapat na ganun yung mindset natin. So, ayun, pangalawa is as regards sa social media, tama din ba na yung sentiment ng taong bayan really reflect yung sentiment sa may social media really reflect yung sentiment ng taong bayan. So for me, again, if you've watched yung documentary regarding social media, so it's all about algorithm. So it's really parang hindi siya reflective kung ano talaga yung sentiment ng tao. So in other words, wala tayo actually clear picture of how the public actually perceive the government. So as much as gusto ng gobyerno to show its popularity, to portray its popularity, but wala actually clear and definitive na picture of what the country actually feels. So even in survey, for me, ang survey sa akin, it's not hindi rin siya accurate picture of what the country wants. So in other words, yung lack of clarity should actually also give us hope na it doesn't mean that 2022 is hopeless na tayo. So in other words, parang I feel na with the right approach in the coming 2022 election, meron pa tayong actually hope to actually change yung status quo. I know, I hope you get what I mean.
Yeah, kasi sabihin ko sa napaka-disheartening naman for politicians, good politicians na walang pera. Di ba?
Yes, but
syempre,
yeah.
I understand, di ba, how it works, di ba? Pero tawag mo dito, like for instance, si Chel joke mo sobrang mahal na mahal siya ng mga tao, pero wala siyang pera, di ba?
Exactly.
So, never ba siyang mananalo?
Yun yung problema. Actually, yun yung isang suggestion ko na ang hirap, ang current system natin is ang hirap mag-raise ng fund. In fact, I've been very vocal about this. Sabi ko, if you really want to make elections more democratic, is you really to allow yung masa to actually spend for the candidates instead of the candidates spending to run in the election. So ang current system natin kasi, I think si Raffy would be familiar in this, is that regardless of the amount that you donate to a candidate, required ka by law to actually submit a notarized document to COMELEC, to the candidate, and then later on to COMELEC. So in other words, even if you donate 50 pesos, that would mean that you have to submit a notarized document. And tanong, magkano ba yung magpanotaryo ngayon? So that's around 350 to 500 pesos. So why would you...
Ang taas naman maningil, Emil.
Ha?
Ang taas mo maningil.
Hindi, ganun yung standard sa notaryo, no? Hindi ko invento yun. But ang punto natin is, actually, the law makes it really difficult to do a grassroots fundraising. So I'm actually really pushing for that, natanggalin actually yung requirement of ROC or yung report of contribution. Because the moment you remove that, possible na yung ginagawa nila sa US na actually yung taong bayan yung nagfa-fund ng mga politiko. Because if wala yung requirement na yun, that would mean na pwede kang mag-raise ng fund through GCash. So for example, kahit piso-piso lang yan, eventually, you can come up with a huge amount enough to actually produce like or to carry out a campaign. So for example, ang sa US system, for example, kaya nilang mag-raise ng ilang milyong like sobrang laking pera based doon sa contribution ng tao na maliliit lang. So $1, $2. Yung kaya ultimately pag inipon mo yun, magiging enough siya to actually run a campaign. But in the Philippines, we cannot do this because of that, I think, stupid requirement na dapat, regardless of the amount, you need to submit an authorized document to COMELEC. So, ang yung aking pinopropose dyan, if you really want to make the 2022 elections more democratic, you really have to remove that requirement and allow people from the grassroots to actually raise enough money to fund candidates that they want. Because ang problema nito, ang advantage ng administration is that they have the whole state machinery and yung state funding to actually run in the 2022 election. So for example, the moment na nagbabaka ng proyekto and then yung release niya would be in time for the election, then ikaw yung maalala ng tao pagdating ng election. But the opposition contesting the incumbent would wala siyang advantage na ganun eh. So in order to level that advantage, the opposition would need to raise enough money na para mapantayan yun, di ba? So, but ang problema nga, yung sistema natin is not, ang hirap eh. So, there are things that we need to change for us to actually have a fair fight this coming 2022. Ang haba na sinabi ko,
Ang ganda.
Hindi ako expert on election law, pero I echo Emil's sentiment regarding especially campaign financing, no. Ang kailangan talagang i-revisit natin yung rules and laws natin diyan. And correct me if I'm wrong, Emil, napakaliit nung allowable spending cap per voter sa elections. And I think this also feeds into sort of a lack of accountability and transparency on the part of candidates, kasi some of them will be forced to underdeclare, and alam naman nating hindi lang 10 pesos or 5 pesos ang ginagastos kada botante. So it's a related issue, but I think yun nga, kailangan din nating i-revisit yung campaign financing na yan. Na
actually, Ross, ang problema sa campaign cap limit, hindi problema ng opposition yan. Kasi nga, sa totoo lang, hindi nga kami abot dun sa probably 1/32 of the campaign limit. Actually, yung problema sa cap is a problem doon sa politikong may pera. Kasi may pera siya, but lampas-lampas. Pero ang problema actually, for example, ni Chel, ni Pilo, and everyone who ran in the opposition is hindi nga namin problema yung cap. Ang problema namin is just even how to raise enough money to run a TV or a radio campaign. So ang problema is not the cap really. In fact, the cap would be good because it would limit how much, for example, a money candidate can spend in an election. But ang problema is actually how you can raise money enough to be at the same level nung may pera. Kasi noon nga parang hirap mag-raise ng 1 million eh. So in other words, hindi problema ng ordinaryong kandidato yung cap, problema yun ng mga mayayaman. So
and I guess my point is it creates this very very dishonest culture among these moneyed elites na hanggang sa transparency ba naman ng ginagastos nyo sa election, 'di ba? May ganitong klaseng pa rin yun nga, na hindi pagsasabi ng totoo. So I guess that's my concern with respect to the spending, no?
Yeah. Kasi kung titingnan mo, kung for example 5 pesos tapos 60 million yung voters mo, that would already be around 300 million. So I don't think that back in 2019 elections, I don't think none of the opposition candidates actually
Were
was
able
able
to
to raise that
Yeah.
not enough money. In fact nga, parang alam ko, parang yung sa amin noon, parang abot lang kami ng mga 6 million. So parang the cap was not really the problem, but the problem is that we have a law that actually makes it very difficult for the public to contribute to the candidates that they want, diba? So, kasi just to give you a picture, tingnan mo kung paano nag-raise ng fund yung sa mga for example sa kaya natin, di ba? Raffy, how much na yung na-raise na fund ng kaya natin for this typhoon?
I think as of tonight, 50 million na.
Oh, so can you
Wow.
imagine, di ba? On the basis of that small donations, they were able to raise 50 million. So inisip ko, if you actually transpose the same concept of mass donation sa election, then you can have a candidate running for
Tama.
Senate raising 50 million. But can you
Tama.
imagine anong nangyari sa amin nung 2019 elections? We cannot even raise 5 million. I mean, it's very difficult to raise 1 million because of that problem dun sa batas na ang hirap mag-donate ng taong bayan, bawal mag-raise na, bawal yung magpiso-piso na donation. So very prohibitive yung system for that system of mass donation. So sa akin, kaya nga nilalabi ko na kung sino yung kaya natin actually ma-influence to actually remove that problematic requirement sa batas, it will really actually change how candidates can run in an election and how we can win an election.
I think it's a huge form, no, of hindi lang recognized na disenfranchisement in terms of the ability of someone personally supporting
Yes.
a preferred candidate. Kasi pag hindi nila kayang gawin yon, tapos parang personal capacity, ganyan, pinagbabawalan pala siya or like meron siyang i-hurdle na batas, ayaw na niya. Di ba? Parang,
yes. And actually, the moment we have this system na madali mag-raise ng money for candidates, actually, this is the only solution of how we can encourage deserving candidates at walang perang pantakbo sa eleksyon. So 'di ba? For example, ayun yung problema eh. Kung sino yung may pera, sila yung walang yung bobo, sila yung tanga, sila yung corrupt. So you end up with those people in government. So if we can solve this problem regarding raising funds for candidates, then probably mas madali tayong maglagay ng karapat-dapat na kandidato doon sa gobyerno.
Exactly.
So unless yun yung problema. I think the moment we solve this problem, I think malaking change yung pwedeng gawin natin.
This is new information for me, Attorney Emil, kasi all I thought was we're like the US, that we can have fundraisers,
Very far.
diba? na parang ganun yung ano natin. Akala ko I could just drop money and this. Kasi grabe ang fundraising sa US eh, 'di ba? Parang
exactly.
Powers, some candidates, AOC ran on a platform na purely people-funded campaign. Hi, Crazy Carabao. Yes. Hello. Purely people-funded campaign. Tapos, yun ang integrity sa kanya na wala siyang hindi lobby, no? Hindi super PACs ang nagko-control ng polisiyan niya. Tao ang kanyang, she is accountable to the people who gave her piso-piso.
Yes, so, exactly. At saka yun pa nga yung advantage pag small donations as against big donations. Kasi in terms of yung weight ng utang na loob, ibang usapan yung utang na loob mo sa kandidatong nagbigay ng 10 million as against sa isang tao or or let's say 100,000 na tao na nagbigay ng 5 piso, yung weight
Tama.
ng influence sa'yo would be different. So actually, yun for me yung best way of removing that advantage sa mga mayayaman. Because the moment you democratize election or campaigning, then that's the only instance where you can put deserving yet poor candidates to public office.
Are politicians right now even thinking about this? Is there a movement to do this?
Yes,
To remove this in the law?
I'm actually hoping for the opposition to really push for this, but apparently this is something na hindi ko alam. At saka yun kasi yung problema sa Kongreso. If for example, if ako mayaman na candidate, why will I push for a legislation that will remove my advantage? So it's a basic logic eh. But I think kailangan nating pag-isipan to. And ako, actually, napag-isipan ko lang din to when we actually run in the 2019 elections. So parang sabi ko, very popular na candidate to. Why is it so difficult for us to raise money?
There was discover mo yung bottleneck.
Yes, for example, may fundraising sa gusto nila yung parang sine, tapos magpa-fundraising sila, but it's actually a prohibitive, it is actually an election offense, so I have to shut it down. So in other words, we really have to think about ang democratization ng election process natin is not just on election day, but even on the campaigning, even on the fundraising. Dapat balik ka. Kasi the moment na i-neglect mo yun, regardless of how popular you are, pag wala kang pera, hindi ka rin mananalo sa eleksyon. Kasi sinasabi ko nga, balik again dun sa fact na election in the Philippines is never issue-based, never pa naging issue-based yung election sa Philippines. Elections in the Philippines is won by money. It's won by influence.
Emotion.
Ha?
And emotion.
Ay, oo
Yes,
naman.
yes. But at the end of the day, if you cannot communicate that emotion to the general public, then hindi nila mararamdaman yun. It will never influence their votes. Diba?
May question
kahit ano mas ito naman. Diba? Kapag hindi emotion na yan, walang mangyayari. Diba?
Oo.
I mean, yung the way the Duterte campaign was run, no, na very emotional in a sense na it appealed to the instincts talaga ng mga tao na yung takot mo na maging biktima ng kriminalidad, nag-appeal siya dun eh. But at the same time, he was able on the invisible strategic side, he was able to marshal all that resource na kinailangan niya para patakbo.
Actually, last few months of the campaign, Duterte actually bumuhos yung pera because everyone knew that he's winning. So talagang bumuhos yung pera. Actually, it's not true na wala silang pera. In fact, ang dami nilang pera, especially nung last few months where it actually mattered. So actually, at the end of the day, pera pa rin. I mean, it's all about the confluence of things. You have the right packaging, you have the right, you're talking about the right issues, and above all, you have the money to communicate those issues to actually sell you to the general public. Yun. So, wag nating i-discount yung pera. So, yun nga yung parang yung tanong ko is whoever is running in 2022 elections, do they have the same resources to actually match the government? So, parang ako, okay, yung parang, that's why very cautious din ako in pinning my hopes with anyone kasi parang I don't see with the prohibitive laws natin on campaign donations,
the billionaires will win kung ganon, diba?
Yeah, exactly. So
the billionaires will win.
So medyo cautious ako in really like yung parang in claiming na we can actually win this because the people do not like this government or do not like the policy of this government. In a way, very cautious din ako because at the end of the day, sila yung may purses, sila yung may pera, sila yung may machinery.
I hope we can end, kasi tama yun, no? Those are the dangers, those are the pitfalls. Dun yung dapat nating ipulis, yun yung dapat nating, tutukan. But we have to leave with a hopeful point. Kasi,
Ang hirap.
Raph, sa totoo lang that's the reason why we're talking about this because that's why it's important so that we have time. If ever we're going to do something, and kung may babanggain tayong isang malaking tangke na gawa sa pera, anong gagawin natin sa isang taon?
Actually, I have to correct you. It's not early. It's actually quite late.
I understand that too. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the election calendar, in less than a year, it would already be the filing of certificate of candidacy. It's October 21. So that's less than a year.
Yeah.
So actually at this point, parang dapat nga nagre-raise ka na ng pera at this point eh. Kung ibig sabihin, it's not early. It's actually quite late. Because ang sinasabi ko nga, elections is won by preparation. Hindi ka nananalo. I mean, you have this inspiring stories about, people from nowhere nowhere winning elections. But that's an exception to the rule, and hindi yun yung general rule. The general rule is if you want to win an election, you really have to prepare and you need to raise money. So yun yung fact. I mean yun yung reality that I have to constantly remind people of.
Correct.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Correct. And ako usually, pag itong pinag-uusapan, never akong nagpapa-end ng very and very, seryoso, sa lahat ng mga in-invite ako to talk about preparations for the 2022 elections, especially for the youth organizers, never pa ako nag-end on a high note about the 2020 elections because they did it to us. Yung 2019 elections, tawag mo dito, patunay na yon of their power. And they can also do that again and again and again. So if we will not do it right sa 2022, if we will not really go out and fight, wala.
Yes. Raf, for example, I really have to I mean a lot of people from the opposition and from our side last election. I mean, all of them are talking about the 7-hour glitch. Until now, every time I post about it, there's still like people who will say na, ay, ano yan, na-operate yung election last 2019. But ang aking up ulit-ulit, sabi ko, I don't think we were cheated. I think we lost. And it's importante na you have to acknowledge that you lost because that's the only time that you can actually go back to the drawing board and analyze bakit ka natalo. And I can tell you, because I was there. I was part of the team of many of the opposition candidates, and I can tell you we lost. Why? Because we did not have money. We cannot even afford a TV commercial. We cannot even afford a radio commercial. And how do you expect to win by Facebook or by Twitter popularity? No, it's not. Yeah. It's not how elections are won.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ross. Yeah.
I posted something on my Facebook about 10 years ago, 2010 elections. I said something like, elections are not sacred events.
Yeah.
Elections are important, but they're not sacred events. Hindi lang sa eleksyon nag-uumpisa at natatapos ang demokrasya. Hindi lang eleksyon ang institution by which we can by which we can exercise our democratic rights, no? And we have to start treating elections as material fields of political choices and strategies. So kailangan na natin talagang i-disabuse yung sarili natin na sa eleksyon nakasalalay ang lahat. Kasi may urgency din ngayon na umpisahan na yung mga political choices and yung mga estratehiya na kailangan nating gawin para maharap yung 2022 and the years to come after 2022 in the aftermath of our choices.
That's right. And tawag mo dito, yung paniningil naman, hindi naman siya dapat mangyari every time may election lamang. Diba?
Yes,
yung paniningil will start immediately after you vote. Diba? Kung manalo man manalo man or matalo yung kandidato mo, sigilin mo na.
No, but ako I would take like the contrary position, no, na tipong ako I would give a premium on elections. Why? Because look at the situation of the EJK victims now. Let's say na the 30,000 a figure is true. How many of them actually have gotten justice at this point? Wala. Why? Because how can you file a case or how can you, for example, seek accountability at the current status quo na kanila mula baba hanggang taas? So, ako, the only instance that we can change the system is by actually changing the people who sit in government. And you can only do that under the constitutional process. We can only do that through an election. And I don't neglect, we should not neglect. Huh?
Election end?
I mean, this coming election, I think for me, it's really crucial. Ako, ayun na sinasabi ko na,
processes, Emil.
yeah, constitutional process. That's why I know that's the only option under the current constitutional scheme, di ba? But yung point doon is, we should really prepare for this coming election. I mean, for me, preparation would entail not just asking the youth to register, but we really have to solidify yung opposition. We have to rally to a particular candidate. We have to raise funds. That's how you win an election.
No, I guess the point of Ross is that hindi lang siya isang bagay lang na dapat yun na yun.
Yes, of course. But ang akin lang is I don't want, sinasabi ko all the time, ayaw ko can you imagine, no? Parang sinasabi nila, I'm at this point, I'm 35. Tapos, for example, 36 ako next year. Tapos, may mananalo na naman sa kanila. So, ibig sabihin, magra-rant na naman ako ng 6 years more. Parang pag... Di ba, can you imagine? Ibig sabihin, hanggang 40 something ako, galit pa rin ako. Di ba? Parang, I think it will be tiring. So, parang, oh my God, I mean, I can't afford 6 more years. So parang I don't want to lose that 2022 opportunity to like another Duterte-like candidate or someone who is like Duterte.
I think it's a very good discussion, no? Especially Ross in giving us a really, really good lens on how human rights is important as we prepare ourselves for the upcoming elections. And of course, Emil in giving prime na consideration as in preparation for the upcoming elections and the elections itself as an exercise na pwedeng simulan ng tunay na pagbabago, no, sa loob ng Pilipinas at pagbawi noong mga kailangan nating bawiin dahil sa mga nasayang na panahon at pagkakataon under this regime. And before we end, may napakahalagang segment pa tayo bago tayo matapos. Yes, napakahalagang segment. Ito ay tinatawag na i-shot na yan.
Hayop ka, lasing na ako.
Wait lang, saan na yung ano natin?
Lasing na yung
intro.
I-shot na yan.
I-shot na yan.
Wala pa rin.
Ay, nawala!
Go! Ano ba?
Kasi natabos natin.
Explain mo.
Okay, so i-shot na yan, fast talk. Madali. Fast talk segment. We're gonna throw a word, a sentence, a name. Then you have to react quickly in just a few words. But before you do, shot ka muna.
Okay.
So, isang lagok muna ng inumin bago sagutin. Okay.
Let's start with Attorney Emil Maran. Marcos.
Wow! Nondescript yun, Raffy. Marcos lang. Ala,
Simula na?
Yeah.
Ano? Ay, sorry, anong word?
Mag-react Marcos.
Okay, sige. Okay, Marcos, sour loser.
Ow!
Ross.
The views.
Ross, yeah. Ross PNP.
Ay,
Ayusin.
PNP. Nako, baka mawalan na akong trabaho. PNP, manyanita, yun na lang.
ayan. Ayan. Manyanita.
Emil.
Emil.
Supreme Court.
Well, hopeful. I mean, I'm still hopeful na they'll do the right thing.
Same.
Ross. EJK.
Accountability,
Pak.
more than anything else.
Emil.
Oh,
Cardema.
ano? Ha, ano?
Cardema.
Hayop ka. Hindi lang ko lang. Ayun, ang hirap na mag-react doon, baka makontempt ako, but Cardema ineligible.
Ayun. Yun ang contention. And I believe that.
Bongga. Ross.
Bongga.
Shabu.
Ang birthstone. Oh my God! Paano na lang kung ang birthstone mo ay shabu? Punyeta talaga.
So,
Grabe.
ano pa, last na lang. Last. No? Sabi nila ang mga lawyers daw, magaling. No? Magaling sa napakaraming bagay. Magaling sa...
Yung alam mo, Raffy, dapat mas mahaba oras sa ganitong portion. Yung medyo informal, hindi yung usapang trabaho. Diba?
Kaya nga eh. Sige, so ito yung last part natin. Emil,
Oh.
ano mas gusto mong gamitin? Bibig o kamay?
Bibig, syempre.
Okay, amazing.
Bakit?
Totoo!
Ha?
Totoo! Chika! Yes.
Wala naman kami ini-insinuate. Ross, bibig o kamay? Ha?
Ha?
May.
Of course!
I have
Kamay.
one hand, the left and the right.
Punyeta! The music press. Oh my God, di ako makahinga. Nagising ako, guys.
Emil,
Go.
gaano katagal? Dugtungan mo.
Gaano katagal? Matagal.
Matagal na tayong naghahanap ng ano.
Matagal na tayo
I know.
naghihintay ng
bago.
Masyadong paantay na to. But ako, malapit yung 2022 and I think we really have to work hard if we want to win that elections.
We will. Hopeful note ako lagi, partner. So, we will.
Ross, isisigaw or iuungol?
Sigaw, lagit-lagi.
Di ba? Ang pag-ibig sa bayan. Di ba?
Oo.
O siya, partner, na tayo? Closing round na.
Natatakot na si Thysz sa mga question.
Ako sa mga question, parang nagiging na.
Alright, last na talaga to. Okay, Emil. Diretso or baluktot? Or
Baliko.
baliko?
Diretso.
Diretso,
syempre.
Sana all diretso. And Ross.
Naku.
Ghosting
Ay?
or texting?
Texting na lang.
Topic namin yan kagabi.
Ano ba?
Ay, Diyos ko.
Si Jules kasi marami na yung na-ghost. Habang
Ay!
diba?
Aray.
Oo.
Hi,
Kahit-
Jules.
Ay, Diyos.
Ang claim ni Jules is ay baliko. Charot.
Palayas tayo ng amo natin, Raffy.
But anyway, thank you so much, Ross, and thank you so much, Emil. Hindi na ako makapag-check ng phone, but we would like to really prepare and really help yung mga kababayan natin sa darating na eleksyon, lalong-lalo ng mga kabataan. And it's important that we ayan, sabi ni Bekilio Dom, same here, I learned something new. Thank you, Atty. Emil. Mass donation is a good option. Sabi ni Bertan, galing mo, Emil. Grabe naman yung mga fans ni
Emil. Ibang kamandag.
They all came out today for Emil.
Ang sarap-sarap mo, Emil.
Ay, meron ba yun?
Parang wala naman ako nabasan ngayon.
Seth. Okay.
Okay, ayoko na. Next na lang. I can't read this.
Ay, okay. Ako hi, Thysz. Ay, okay. Hi, Nico. Hello.
Alright. Arthur.
Okay, okay. We're gonna close this. Usually, we have a closing statement. So, we'll ask from both of you. What's your final message for somebody who looks at the 2022 elections as something like hindi naman opposing views, no? Pero it's more of parang we have to be cautious when we say that we are going to give the elections, like, that kind of gravity. Matagal lang sinasabi na dapat may iba tayong ginagawa aside from it. Okay? So, and then on the other side, Emil's like, no, we're gonna put, more, the same weight as we've always had for the elections because ang dami nating kailangan gawin at may magagawa naman tayo para mangyari nung gusto nating change. So, I'll start with Attorney Ross. What can you say to somebody who's looking at the 2022 elections, thinking na parang, okay, this is my chance to do something for the country, to take a stand. So any closing remarks in that sense?
Siguro a few words lang, no? Una, magtaya. Pangalawa, makinig. At pangatlo, kumilos. So, yun lang. Election tagline ko yun. That's my election tagline. Pero yun, importante sa akin na merong personal tayong, kasi lahat tayo may personal stake in this upcoming elections. So, ibigay mo yung kaya mong ibigay, itaya mo yung kaya mong itaya. At hindi lang natatapos sa isang singular act ang pagbago sa kahihinatnan ng Pilipinas, no. So patuloy lang tayo na lumaban sa mga bagay na sumisiil sa bayan at lumaban para sa kinabukasan ng Pilipinas. Yun lang.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Emil naman, for you closing remarks in that sense.
Sa akin siguro parang ako personally parang yung pagod na ako sa nangyayari, parang sabi ko I can't do this like 6 years more na ganito uli. I don't want to go into like 6 years more of my life parang everyday complaining about what's happening in the country. Parang I can't imagine doing that like in the next 6 years. So parang for me, 2022 election is like a very important very important event sa akin kasi for me this is our chance to actually change yung ayaw natin sa gobyerno and yung ayaw natin na nasa gobyerno. And I think ang importante sa akin as an election lawyer is that we really have to prepare. We cannot just, go into 2022 elections just hoping people are just not happy with this government and they will vote against this government. Sa akin, it takes more than that. It needs work. It needs preparation. It needs us. And I hope na someday. And I hope na pagdating ng oras na yon, we are prepared to parang prepared tayo to actually do something to change the status quo. Medyo magulo ba? Pero, lasing na
Okay
ata.
naman.
lasing na ata ako, but yun. I'm really hopeful
Oo.
this coming 2022 elections. And again, I'm going back doon sa pinupush ko na I really hope that the young people, the youth, will really, I'm hoping for them to actually be the one to change the status quo, and they will play a bigger role this coming 2022 elections. And again, balik ako doon, there are around 10 million youth who are not registered, and I'm hoping that they will register for the coming elections, and we really need to work hard to encourage them to actually participate. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Attorney Emil, for that. And as usual, I start with a wrap up, and then it's partner Raffy. Hindi it's not secret that I am part of a youth registration drive, We the Youth Vote. Been actively since the start of the registration period, uh, you know, helping plan and package how uh, the registration drive becomes more palatable to a new generation of voters. But what I really wanted to know from this discussion are like the things that we need to be warned about. Ano mga kailangan nating coming into a lead time of a year. Nasabi nga ni Attorney Emil ay it's late already. But what can we do in that lead time? How can we help the youth really, put to good use the power that they have when they are registered, and then educate them coming from a point na makikinig muna tayo sa kanila, then let's say educate them, yung sinasabi point ni Attorney Ross. Again, I'm coming from a hopeful, or I'm going to end with a hopeful point. As with any democratic exercise, kailangan ng paghihimok, kailangan ng pag-oorganisa. And once we achieve that kind of unity, I guess there is a chance. May number. Nasabi yun ni Attorney Emil. May numero. May power dun sa numerong yun. If we can influence enough in our circles, we may be able to do it. So, ang laki ng responsibilidad because we want change in this world. Let's participate and go be that change. Partner?
Ako, 3 bagay ulit. Una ay baba. Bumaba at makinig. Bumaba at intindihin ang pinagdaraanan ng mga kababayan natin. Bumaba at tanggalin ang mga nakabalot na konserbatibong pananaw natin, no? Lalong-lalo na sa lipunan. Maraming mga tao, maraming mga kabataan, maraming organisasyon ang gusto naman talagang intindihin ang pinagdaraanan ng ating bayan. Pero minsan hindi kasi tayo bumababa sa pedestal para tunay nating mapakinggan ang pinagdaraanan nila. Pangalawa ay babad. Bumabad sa issue ng lipunan, suriin, palalimin ang pag-intindi, at hikayatin ng iba, no, na magpalalim din, no. Yung sabi-sabi na di ikaw na matalino, yung sabi-sabi na hindi ko yan alam, wala akong pakialam dyan, yung sabi-sabi na wala naman akong kaibigang adik yan ang mga bagay na naghihiwalay sa atin, no? Naghihiwalay sa ating hindi sa pagka-Pilipino, pero sa ating pananaw na may ibang grupo na hindi tayo naapektuhan, pero hindi yun totoo, no? At pangatlo ay bakbak. Katulad ng sinabi ni Attorney Emil at ni Attorney Ross, hindi magiging madali ang darating na eleksyon. Pwedeng walang kandidato ang ating mga kandidato, pwedeng wala tayong makinarya, pwedeng wala din tayong napakaraming tao, no, na mayayaman na nasa likod ng ating kandidato. Pero sa tingin ko, hindi dapat hindi dapat ito maging basihan at hindi dapat ilimita ang eleksyon sa mga bagay na ito. Dahil ang eleksyon para sa akin sa huli ay tungkol pa rin sa tao at sa taong bayan at sa mga taong buboto sa dating na eleksyon. Para sa akin, ang eleksyon ay tungkol pa rin sa pag-asa at sa clamor ng napakaraming tao sa pagbabago. Nagoyo tayo minsan, katulad naman yan sa pagmamahal or sa kung ano pa man aspeto, nagugoyo talaga tayo minsan. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na forever tayong gugoyoin at magpapagoyo, no, sa mga maling tao, lalong-lalo na sa politika. Ang eleksyon sa 2022 ay isang pagkakataon para bawiin natin kung ano ang atin. Ang lipunan, ang bayan, ang Pilipinas na pinapangalagaan ng karapatang pangtao, ang Pilipinas, ang lipunan, ang bayan na pinapangalagaan ng demokrasya, ang Pilipinas, ang bayan, ang lipunan na pinapahalagahan ang batas, no, at dignidad, no, ng sambayan ng Pilipino. Ito po ang Inuman with Thysz and Raffy. Maraming salamat, Emil at Ross.
Ang seryoso ng closing statement. Nahiya ako.
Thank you so much for joining us. Till next week. Till next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.